Hey freeze dryers, welcome back to the Live Life Simple Kitchen. Last week we did alternative milk, which is kind of the anti or alternative dairy. Today we're doing a total 180 and we're doing basically as dairy as it gets. We're gonna do some half and half, some heavy whipping cream, some Reddi whip in a can, Cool Whip, sour cream, and cream cheese. Today we're gonna figure out which dairy freeze dries and which doesn't coming up. Well, this stuff for me is all new terrain. I don't do a whole lot of dairy. It doesn't really agree with me very well, as well as a couple of members of my family. So we don't do really heavy dairy. So we don't typically do any freeze drying with it either. But I have always been curious, especially with heavy whipping cream, stuff that is really, really high fat, if it'll freeze dry or not. And heavy whipping cream and half, I always thought would be cool if you could just have a portion size to use of this instead of, because it seems like these containers are always not a real handy size to have. It would be nice just to have like a little cube or something instead. And this Reddi whip, I did two different kinds because they do make a sugar-free version as well, which I think, if anything, is going to be the problem with freeze drying it. So I would imagine one of these two will work. So I think we have a 50-50 shot here. Our Cool Whip says it has 0 lactose in it, but it does have lots and lots of corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, and different types of vegetable oils, coconut oil, things like that. So be interesting to see if this freeze dries. And our sour cream and our cream cheese, I think, would be another thing that would just be super cool if you just had a little nugget that you could use. Like a dollop of sour cream would be really cool, like a single serving portion. But we're never gonna know if we don't get going on this. So I think I'm gonna do the half and half and the heavy whipping cream first. And I'm gonna do them first because they need to be, I think, put into silicone molds. Ice cube molds is what I'm using. And then we can pre-freeze them, and that'll give us kind of a little nugget size that we can rehydrate. I'm gonna do the heavy whipping cream in the blue molds. I think I'm just gonna go about halfway full maybe on each of these. And then our half and half is gonna go in our red, and half and half always reminds me of my grandparents because they used to love this stuff in their coffee. And then into the freezer with those. I think I'm gonna use my silicone mats for the rest of this. I'm gonna do the original Reddi whip on this half. And then I think if we have any chance for this to work for the Reddi whip, the 0 sugar will probably be the one. Although it does have heavy whipping cream in it, so I'm not so sure that either one is gonna work. Okay, so we have our dollop of Daisy sour cream. I'm working on my cubes of cream cheese. And I'd love to know in the comments section for all of our dairy farmers out there how some of their creams and like buttercream, things like that do in the freeze dryer if they've ever tried it. I would imagine that the fat content is probably too high to get it to store for a longer term, or even for goats, goat milk, goat cheese. I'd love to hear any feedback that you can give me on that. But you can see that our Reddi whip is just kind of flattening out, going flat. I'll see if I can get this last tray with Cool Whip on it as quick as I can into the freezer, and then we'll add our half and half and our heavy whipping cream. All right, we're gonna get these into the deep freeze. I'm gonna add my half and half and my heavy whipping cream, and then we will see you at the freeze dryer. Okay, well before we go into the freeze dryer, these are all frozen now. I've got my heavy whipping cream on this side, half and half on this side. This is our Cool Whip, which is doing really nice. Obviously, you usually store Cool Whip in a frozen area anyway. And there's our cream cheese, or sour cream. And then we have our Reddi whip. Wah, wah. It really shrunk down. This is the no sugar one. This is the full sugar one, but they really kind of just went down to not much of anything. And let's get this underway. And if you haven't, take a second to subscribe to Live Life Simple. We do all freeze drying on this channel, food preservation, and then take a second to hit that bell to get notifications. That'll send you a notification every time a video comes out, which for us is every Sunday at 8 a.m. And if you found this or any of our videos helpful, please just take a second, give us a thumbs up. It really helps out with our YouTube algorithm, helps this video and other videos get out to the right people. Freeze dryers. And if you're curious about freeze drying, make sure you join one of our social media groups. We have a Facebook group and we have a MeWe group, and between one of those groups I'm sure you can find anything you're looking for. Make sure you use that search function on there. It's really helpful. Before you ask a question, it might already be on there. And on those social media groups we do a free giveaway almost every single week. So if you're interested in a freeze dryer, use our affiliate link. That'll take you to harvestright.com. It'll tell them that we sent you there. And if you're interested in any of the freeze drying products you've seen in this video, check out freezedryingsupplies.com. Now let's freeze dry some dairy and I will see you in a second. Well, just when I thought that I had seen a quick cycle, this one was 13 hours and 34 minutes. It says it's done. I'm not sure if it is or not. And it looks like right away we've got some issues. These are all puffed up and they're hitting the heating pads on top. And that would have been the Cool Whip, I believe. Half and half and heavy cream actually looks good, surprisingly. There's our cream cheese and our sour cream and our no sugar and sugar Reddi whip. Let's take these upstairs and we'll dissect them a little further. So first thing, I think I want to dissect the sour cream. I thought for sure that this would not work. It's actually not too bad and it stays in its form pretty well. I don't know that it would hold up if you had it in Mylar. If it got a lot of pressure against it, it would kind of crumble apart. But to me, it looks like it does actually work, surprisingly. Let's try our cream cheese, which I also thought would not work, and it also stays in its form pretty well. If this was in a ball jar, it would have no problem staying together, but it does have the tendency to crumble apart. But the million-dollar question is, will it rehydrate well? So I'm gonna add a little bit of water, I'm gonna give it a mix. We're gonna see if it's possible to have no refrigeration with this dairy. And the quick answer is yes. Our cream cheese, it seems to do fine. I mean, it really looks about the same. It's very thick. It tastes fine. What would be really cool with the cream cheese is you could add some freeze-dried blueberries or different kinds of berries or whatever and get yourself a non-refrigerated bagel spread. And it's just too tempting. I want to try it on a bagel. I don't have any fruit in here, but this spread, I can't believe how good it rehydrates. It's actually pretty surprising. Cheers. Cream cheese works perfect. It even kind of melts onto the bagel like it normally would when the bagel's hot. I'll call it a success. And our dollops of sour cream, they also worked. Let's give it a quick taste before we move on. It's right on, and the texture is right on too. That really surprises me. I was not expecting that. I'm going to call our Reddi whip a no-go. It loses all of its puff. They are usable, but it really just kind of crumbles down into a powder. So the sugar version of this does actually stay together a little bit better if you wanted to use it for that purpose of using it in a drink or something like that. It stays together a little better for storage, but I would still call it no good. I'm also gonna call the Cool Whip a no-go because it is just a total puff ball and it's really just not usable unless you were gonna grind it down into a powder, just like the Reddi whip. So something really strange happened. I had this sitting out for about 20 or 30 minutes now, and I came back and looked at this, and it's actually just the air. The humidity in the air is kind of softening this up kind of back to the regular texture before we put it in. So I think I want to let this hang out for, I don't know, another 20-30 minutes, maybe more, and see if it actually turns back into those original dollops. I want to see what happens. It's been about an hour, and it's really soft now. It's really kind of strange. It reminds you a little bit of cotton candy, and it reminds you a little bit of puffed marshmallows, like the jet puffed. And unfortunately, it looks like the heavy cream, I thought we were good on it, but it's too fatty. It's almost like butter. You can tell it's just not gonna freeze dry. And the half and half did a lot better. I think it would be okay for a little bit of short-term storage, but it's just really oily. You can just see the oil on your fingers. So I think the half and half would rehydrate really well. So let's just see if that works. So that was actually really cool. It just kind of dissolved, and I'm gonna take a coffee frother and just mix it in here. And I would call that a success. As long as you remember this is short-term storage. Well, a whole lot of mixed results today. A couple things that really surprised me. The sour cream, yes. The cream cheese, yes. The Reddi whip and the Cool Whip, probably not. Maybe the full sugar Reddi whip could be used for putting into coffee and things like that. The half and half is as a maybe, because I think that it could be okay if you were taking it camping or something like that and you just dropped it into coffee. The heavy whipping cream is just too high in fat content, and there's no way that I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't try and even use it for short term. But a couple new things for me that I didn't know would work, and we pulled out some positives today. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.